a roller coaster ride, actually, a coaching journey. You really go there. It's deep, it's very personal work, and every single journey is completely unique
Mm.
because you are unique. You are your own set of experiences. No one's ever done it like you before. So every single time you just have to stay present with what's there, and you figure out the journey together. You always have the big kind of ideal goals in mind. That's the North Star. But the way you get there is through iterative, smaller steps, the day by days, the learning experiences, and locking them in as you learn. And eventually you get to the bigger goal. But it's not like a magic wand. But
Yeah,
it's like, ta-da! And you are
yeah.
now CEO. It's not, unfortunately, that easy.
God, I remember when I first came to you and I was just all over the place. And I remember thinking, like, God, this must be such a hard job to be a coach because here I am just like bawling my eyes out. And you just knew all the right things to say. It was really like incredible actually, thinking back. But well, so what other sort of clients do you work with in the coaching world?
Really, all sorts, all sorts. I do call myself a leadership and impact coach, but I don't mean leadership as in I've got the director title. A lot of my clients are, but a lot aren't. But I really feel like we're all leaders. We're all leaders of our own lives. We all have to take responsibility to a lot of extent for our own path. It's when we relinquish control, actually, that you kind of start to get into trouble. So being the leadership of your own ship, and impact as in what impact do you want to make? I work with people who really want to make a difference. And it could be the Greta Thunbergs of this world, or it could be like within my own family and make, it doesn't have to be the big kind of life purpose mission goal. It can be something that's really within your own community. So yeah, I kind of work with people to make sure that they are living their purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question.
No, yeah, definitely. And I can imagine this is like a crazy time for some of your clients.
Hmm.
I guess it would be great to hear about any learnings that you're having, or like how have you changed the way that you're coaching given the current circumstances?
That's a really good question, actually. I actually haven't changed the way I'm coaching. I have noticed, certainly the people who are in the driving seat of their companies. What I really noticed was, to my delight, really, is that those who had done the work, they were really sat in their values, and that's a very coachy term. I'll just explain a little bit about that. When we're connected to what truly, truly drives us, we get to make decisions that really that are in alignment with who we are and where we're going. And so values show up for us in various different ways. And what I have found with the leaders who are kind of in the driving seat and making the tough calls, they were so aligned in their own values and their company values that when it came to making the tough decisions and the calls, they knew what they had to do, and their their staff knew what they had to do, and they were all on side, and they were kind of, you could see that there was a real camaraderie. They'd taken them on that journey with them, so they had done the hard work. It didn't seem, and I'm seeing, I've also started a podcast really around that subject, called Certain Change. And it's really about how leaders, what leadership tools are coming to the forefront in crisis. And what I'm seeing is people who are extremely transparent, honest, with a lot of integrity, who aren't saying one thing, doing another. When they're aligned, they're winning out. People are staying on side. I know it's a very fear-driven time right now, but there are ways of doing this. there is going to be bad news. It's just how you deliver that bad news. And I'm delighted to say that the clients who are having to make those addresses and make those calls are doing it really well. Yeah, I think also what I've seen in this time is I've kind of gone, there's been a bit of a lull in the last couple of months where people have just kind of steadied themselves and just tried to get balanced. Now I'm starting to see the influx of, okay, what does this mean? What do I need to do now? And this isn't just the leaders. This is people like, you know what? This is a good time to reassess. I'm talking to people about launching their own business, people about career changes, even now when, the job market is going to explode, with people flooding in. But people are just, no, you know what? This is a good signpost for me. I want to change. I want to do something with this. This will mean something. What do I want to say when I look back on this period about what I did with it and who I was at that time? Mm. So it's throwing up a lot of interesting questions.
I can imagine. I think one of the things that I found really helpful in one of our sessions was when we spoke about values and like finding what your values are. Finding them out is a challenge in itself. What are some things that people can do to, if they are thinking about starting a business or they're making a career change, how can you find out what your values are and then stick to them as well?
Well, values, I think there's things certainly around, a really good exercise to do actually, if you want to learn what your values are, think about what pisses you off. What really, really grinds your gears, right? Because that is a value being stepped on. For example, I go nuts when someone pushes past me to get onto the tube first and won't be letting people off the tube. Drives me insane. And for others, that would be like, oh my God, get a grip. But for me, politeness, you first, respect is a respect for just mankind. And that's a value that is just, it's stepped on every time someone goes, no, me, get out the way. So I know that in my own business, I need that to be one of the driving forces and the North Star. That's where I'm going to make impact, is when I'm working with people who also want it to be a greater good. So you can start to kind of tell your own narrative around that. And I mean, I went through a hell of a journey to get to where my true values were. Certainly around justice really came up for me, and made a lot of sense of my entire life, actually, once I understood that. How I react to things that I see as unjust. So yeah, it's a really interesting journey to ascertain what truly drives you, because it is different for everyone, and you don't think it is. You think everyone's like that, but they're not. It's very, very specific to you. It's your fingerprint. So yeah, I mean, by all means, I'm happy to talk to someone. I run a webinar as well around it, and it's deeply fascinating work. It's a great voyage of self-discovery that you can do relatively quickly.
I would definitely recommend, if anyone's watching, to try out one of those webinars, especially around value stuff, because I found that so helpful. I remember you saying, if you're feeling like really sad, something's making you really sad or angry, it's usually because someone's stepping on your values. And that just switched on a light in my head. It made me realize that I shouldn't be working in some places that I was still hanging on to, maybe thinking that I was being irrational. But you start to realize that it's not just, you have values, they are there, you just need to find them. So,
yeah, and I think articulating them is really important. And sometimes what they do is they show up in kind of value chains. So for instance, we might have one around security, but for me that's going to mean something very different to you. We probably both have values around security or family. I mean, very rarely do people not. but it's just what it means to you.
Mm.
So it's and so you need to kind of personalize that. Otherwise, they can be quite flighty and fluffy. But for them to truly lock down and mean something, and for them to drive decisions as well, because you start to, once you've really ascertained what that is. I mean, I've had people make decisions on which career, which job to go for, which organization to choose, when they have a long list of organizations to choose from. They're you know, they weren't in short supply. They went with the ones that aligned with their values.
Mm.
I will make sense here. I won't here. That's got a bigger paycheck attached to it, but I'll be miserable. So no. So it's almost like you've got a decision making matrix that's aligned with your personality.
Mm. Yeah, like clears
Mm.
away the cobwebs, because sometimes you
Yes.
just can't see.
Mm.
Things can be so
Mm.
overwhelming. So yeah, I found that amazing.
And it also stops you kind of going down the path that one of my kind of key values on for coaching, and actually just in life, is just don't be a carbon copy. Just because it worked for your dad or your sister, or the people who've kind of maybe helped you curate your path so far, doesn't mean it works for you, because
mm,
your values are different, because what you need in life is different. So and you I have worked with a lot of people who just kind of don't fit where they thought they should be. There's a lot of shoulds and musts in coaching, and that's where the critics come in, and you kind of boot them aside and see what's actually under there. What do you want to do? What would fulfilling look like for you? And
yeah.
it's scary. It's scary to truly voice that sometimes, but that's where the hard work is, and that's where the meat of the work is.
Mm. And I suppose that sort of leads us on quite nicely to my next question, which was about the inner leader work that we did.
Oh yeah,
Can
yeah.
can you explain a little bit about what that looks like and why it's relevant?
It's the most fascinating tool. I do it with all of my clients actually at the discovery phase, probably within the first session. It's a tool. It's a visualization that we go through, and I'm doing a webinar on it now at the moment because everything's webinars. But so you meet your inner leader. You can call it anything you want. It could be your inner mentor. It can be your North Star. It can be your guiding light, your guardian angel, however you want to visualize it. But it's that really deep-seated knowing in you. Because really, really, really speaking, coaching is about unraveling and revealing what you already know, but are probably too afraid to say or admit, or you can't quite see how that could possibly work, so not going to go there. The inner leader is that bit in you that just knows. It's like, well, you, yeah, it's a perspective bringer. It's almost like, what would your inner leader say?
Mm.
Or I need to tap into my inner leader today because they have the strength to get me through this presentation, or the meeting with the board, or whatever that is. And so they have this strength, the wisdom, and it, whatever you make it. Mine's actually changed over the years because I needed a different kind of North Star when I was kind of first making it into my own business, to where I am now. um, I've gone from a pirate queen to a Greek goddess. I mean, I don't want it to make sense to anybody. That's just what worked for me.
It reminds
Everyone,
me of the Patronus that they have in Harry Potter. Do you watch Harry Potter?
I don't know Harry Potter.
Oh, you need to watch
Can I
them.
admit that publicly?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, they every wizard has a Patronus charm, and it's like very symbolic, and it's their like inner strength,
Yes. Yeah.
kind of like that.
Can I? Can I? Can I be a coach for a second and ask you a question?
Yeah.
How have you used it? I mean, we found yours a while ago now. How has it shown up for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very helpful tool to have. I guess it's just physically, I would wear the necklace on my chest because when we did the visualization, long story, but that's what came to mind. So I have this necklace that I wear, and then physically it always reminds me of the inner strength that I do have. And I guess it just taught me to trust myself a bit more. I'm one of those people that I will always ask everybody for their opinion, and then I'm so confused by the end of it. I don't listen to any of them, but I could just trust myself more, because you know, you are allowed to make mistakes is what I've realized as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of permission to fail as well in
Mm,
there, and it not be the end of the world.
definitely.
Yeah. I think, and certainly in a world where it demands perfection, I think that it's rife actually in our society that we feel that we must be perfect.
Mm,
And I, for want of better words, it is things like Instagram and, where we're constantly in comparison of each other and who's doing it best and who's doing it better and why am I not at that? We're constantly benchmarking ourselves against the impossible. Where, in a world where no one fails,
mm.
but it's so untrue. It's absolutely untrue. The very fact that you have to do a bug fix every means that technology isn't perfect actually, and we're always doing our bug fixes. I think, and our updates. We all need reboots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nothing's perfect. But it's a really hard one to, and that's where all this imposter syndrome is coming from. And I'm kind of glad it's out there in the world and being talked about so freely now, because it's something we've all been racked with for
Mm,
years. And I'm just so glad that things like mental health, like coaching, are just so readily available, not just to the top execs, it's
mm.
for everybody.
Everyone, yeah.
That's what I'm really enjoying now. Because I've been a coach for on the sidelines, certainly for about 14 years now. And it used to be the fluffy bit. I don't know. We've got to be nice to our staff. Okay, what do we need to do? Why can't they just do their fucking jobs? And actually, now it's front and center, health and well-being. How are our people? People, happy people are productive people. And so hence the likes of you and me able to step into this world and say, okay, we've got solutions for you too. It's a healthier mindset in corporate now,
Definitely.
getting there anyway.
Can you talk a little bit more about imposter syndrome?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it shows up in all of us in various ways, really. I'm sure we've all felt it, even if we won't admit it. Um, it is this constant need or feeling that you can't put a foot wrong. I think for women, I can really only speak as because I am one. I can't really speak. I can probably speak on behalf of some of my clients, but um, certainly for me, the need to have all of the qualifications to know the subject completely before being able to pass opinion on it, before being able to contribute to the conversation. I must be this qualified, or I must have this master's, or couldn't even entertain going for that job, for that position, without having 90% of the job description covered, because I couldn't possibly walk in there day one and not know everything. And then as you step into leadership, it's that relinquishing of control of actually, you're not meant to know everything. You're actually going to do yourself a disservice if you try to. You have to start to understand that you need to play to people's strengths, but because we've gone through the ranks, we feel like we must know the job in its completeness and absolutely every facet of it. So a lot of imposter syndrome comes up when you start to step into leadership, when you start to manage others, and feel like you must know it all. It really kicks up at that point, and it kicks up as you go further and further up the chain, because it's quite lonely at the top, actually, and you don't feel like you can talk to other people, because that might be vulnerable and weak to say, I don't know.
Mm.
And so the imposter syndrome of, and certainly right now, where there are no answers, there is no playbook, no one knows how to get through this crisis, and everyone's kind of looking to you for the big answers. Yeah, a lot of imposter syndrome is kicking up from there. But I think we have it from kind of almost day one as
Wow.
well. You know, we feel like we need to put on a front, armor up, and it kind of can really shut you down.
Mm.
And the anxiety around it as well, really, it's like acid in the stomach for a lot of people.
Definitely. I know this is like an issue for yoga teachers as well. Like I
Yeah.
was actually speaking to one of our yoga teachers yesterday who literally said exactly this. She's like, I always feel like I need to do more trainings, and I can't express like what a brilliant teacher she is. Our
Yeah.
clients just love her, but there's
Yeah.
still that doubt in her mind. So yeah, what sort of tips do you have? Like, is it just about identifying it, or is there something more we can do to try and overcome imposter syndrome?
So there's a couple of things, I reckon. So for, take your yoga teacher there, for example. She's stuck in one perspective around that. The need to know more. Um, and so she's checked in with that, and is it a fear-based decision that she's making there? And because she obviously, I mean, I know you're an amazing student. You love to learn, and you're always constantly wanting to just see what else is out there. There's a joy in that. That is not a fear-based decision to learn more. It's when we feel like we're scrabbling to hold a position, the kind of claws have come out and we're just trying to hold our position or try and make our way ahead. That is a really unhealthy state to be in, especially for yoga, where you want to be completely in flow. um, I would say, what advice do I have? That's a good question. Do you know what? You do this beautifully in your classes. You give permission. And I think, and I do this with all of my clients, and I encourage my clients to do it with people in a tricky situation. Design your relationships. Be explicit. If you go into, I don't know if it would be for a yoga class, but to actually truly go in and say, this is who I am, this is what you can expect of me, and this is how I work. And sometimes it might go a bit wrong. And you know what? I'd like their permission for it to be just a bit of a laugh. Because, like you say, it's only yoga. You know, it's fun. We're meant to fall over because we're not all yogis, and it's meant to be for real people, not just the gymnasts, in us. So it's this permission giving piece. By giving permission to others, you give permission to yourself. And much like we design the room when we have confidential conversations, is so that we don't want just confidentiality, but no one gets to be wrong, no one gets to be right. Like, who do we need to be in this room right now to make the best possible decisions and collaborate effectively? And it happens so little that we give permission. I would say to anyone listening, or that maybe there could be some notes afterwards. There's a couple of different women I would say to look up on this. Um, Tara Sophia Moore writes a book called Playing Big, and she talks about fear, and she talks about two types of fear. Where one is where you are just a little mistake and you will crash, burn, no one will ever talk to you again, you will be ostracized and, yeah, leave and banished. And and we have those catastrophizing kind of thoughts, don't we?
Yeah.
And then there's the fear where it just feels like, ooh, bit big and scary, but oh, it would be quite exciting. But oh, there's fear in that excitement as well. So it's about, and she has some really great rules about identifying when you are in each perspective. And Brené Brown also, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of her. She's a shame and vulnerability researcher. She writes about permission slips and how she creates safe spaces for her and her team, as she calls it, to rumble in, to have their collaborations in, because the very, very core of creativity is vulnerability. And if you offer an idea out and you're wrong, you don't offer an idea out again. That's a whole pile of imposter syndrome right there. If you are a yoga teacher and you don't get to fall over, there's a whole, that could shut you inside for a month. It's this permission giving. I encourage everyone to do it in every relationship, whether they've been in their relationship 20 years or, or it's a class member. It's quite an important lesson.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think especially now with so many yoga teachers having to suddenly teach online, which can be extremely terrifying, speaking from experience here. So to go from teaching like real humans to, of course, real humans, but through a screen is, having to overcome a lot of fear. But it's really interesting that you said about identifying, is it like fear, I'm still kind of excited about this, and where it could take me, or is it like fear, this is going to be very not fun forever, I'm going to hate this forever?
Yeah, no one's going to ever speak to me again. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I have one more question if you have time.
Yeah.
It's just about presentation stuff. So, like, are there any key takeaways or practical takeaways for people who have to, talk on Zoom, who aren't used to talking on Zoom, or even if they are, just like, how can we improve the way we communicate and present to others?
Yeah, sure. This is such a good one, actually. So, I mean, I'm on my phone right now, so I'm not used to really talking on my phone. I'm usually on my computer. I like real basics. Put the person you are speaking to underneath your camera so that you look like you're looking at them. So often I've had conversations with people who are looking at me and they're having a great time looking at me, but they're over. I'm like, hi, hello. So it's like it's 101 really. Put the person that you're looking at and you want to speak to right underneath your camera, and then you will look like you're looking at them. Also, certainly with presentations, if you have your notes down here and you're looking back up again and you've got your bullet points there, you're going to get quite a lot of this. Again, underneath the person that you've just popped underneath your camera, pop your bullet points right underneath them and auto cue yourself effectively. So, and you can scroll notes up on your screen and you still look like you're just talking to that person quite naturally, but actually you're kind of semi-reading in a way. It's an auto cue. It's exactly what the newsreaders do. So just those alone can really help you. And as long as you're comfortable and you don't sound like you're reading every word, really speaking, and this is like rule 101 for any kind of presentation, is practice, rehearse, prepare. It used to drive me nuts. I worked in corporate for 10 years and I did so many pitches where, oh, it'll be fine. We're great. Don't worry. Yeah, we've got this. It's ridiculous to assume that everyone that is pitching with you has got this. Preparation is key because it means that you've got your mouth around the words and that you really know where you want to go and the very key messages that you want to make. So prep always. To go in underprepared is really, especially if you're nervous, it just makes a kind of it's just such a shame, really, when you've probably put quite a lot of work into whatever it is that you're presenting. Say the words out loud. Do a dress rehearsal.
Mm. And if you are super nervous, like I know some people get, including myself, like what kind of things can we tell ourselves before or even during? Like how can we change that to bring us out of that, like, oh, rabbit in headlights?
Yeah. Um, I'd say connect to the purpose. It's quite a big sentiment, really, isn't it? Connect to what story are you telling? What do they need to know? Tell them that story. What is it that you cannot leave that call without them knowing? And understand what also have a think about who you are on your best day when everything's in flow and you got this, when you on your best, and just note what comes up for you physically there. Give it a name. It's much like your inner leader. Who am I when I'm on fire, when I'm in flow? Yeah, like who is that? And that's the energy to take in to it. Connect to it. Have your structure, your necklace that you just connect to, or the name, and see what energy that gives you. Because you've got the resource inside you already. It's just about bringing it out in that context.
That's so helpful. I can relate to that.
It's years of trial and error, darling. Learn from my mistakes.
Oh, good. Well, that was like incredible. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday. I don't know if there are any questions. If anyone does have any questions, just pop them in the comments now and we'll get them answered. But we will save this video afterwards so you can replay it or share it or whatever. If you've not seen it, you can watch it again. And also, don't forget to look up Amelia's webinars. How can they find out more?
So I've got a few things going on. Lockdown has been very creative. So I've got 2 podcasts. One I launched yesterday, the other's coming out on Monday. The one yesterday is Certain Change, and that's very much about leadership navigating the COVID crisis. The one on Monday is called Pivot Points, and it's much more about the celebration of people's twists and turns in life, whether they be from successes or failures or just one of life's curveballs. So that's really that's been really interesting to do these kind of interviews. They'll be coming out over the next few weeks. My webinars, all of my programs, everything are on my website, which is kinestheticacoaching.com, which I'll link in with you for that. So my webinars are on there, my one-to-one coaching, my presentation coaching, all of that kind of jazz is on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amelia. I've loved talking to you. I've loved always talking to you. If anyone has any questions, you can just message either me or Amelia. Thank you so much for joining. And have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy the sun.
You too. Bye.
Bye.